So a day has passed and the board is all smooth, but there is some warp as the hide dried nice and smoothly. It also shrank because the remaining humidity left the hide, and thus it pulled the planks a little bit, warping the whole shield board a little. This is not much of a problem because, as you can see, this is where the shield stick, the shield handle, the handlebar will be attached to the board, and this will straighten out the board again. So it's also interesting that you have this nice flex in that shield, which is probably going to be even more apparent and even better once I have thinned down the shield board even more, which is what I'm going to do next. So there is the shield, all thinned down with this simple historical spokeshave, and I introduced that tool in the first video just in case you haven't seen it. So I lost quite a bit of material, which is good because that reduces weight, and I have cut off the overlapping edge. I may or may not add an edging to this shield, but I'm not sure yet. As you can see, the edge is very, very thin. I have cut edge strips for my shields using another hide, which I have processed and worked much the same way, scraping it down to a nice equal thickness, removing all the tissue on the flesh side and of course preserving the valuable grain side. Now I'm going to put them in a jar with water to soften them before I'm going to attach them to my shield, which is waiting over there. So after half an hour's time, the parchment is all soft, and I think I'm going to take it out of the jar now, so that it can dry a little bit before I attach it. It doesn't have to be dripping wet. Actually, all I need is this consistency, and it's going to keep that for a while. Before I finally attach the edge strips, I have worked the edges of the shield board a little more. So I used a knife to cut them down, giving them an even more extreme distal taper at the very edge. So that's like the last inch or so, 2 centimeters. And yeah, I cut the board down in thickness to about 2 millimeters only, and then I used the knife to chamfer the edges. So now it's a really nice, smooth and very thin edge, which is really good in all fighting with pressure feedback. So like sharp swords, they provide a good pressure feedback because sharp edges give you better sensory and tactile information in a bind, and the same is true for shields. And some people will say, oh yeah, but with an edge that thin, the shield can easily be destroyed. Now here's the thing, we do have ample evidence that shield edges were indeed very, very thin. And as we have already tested, a sharp edge does not really damage such an edge in the same way as a blunt does. A sharp edge gets stuck, and this is something that is to the advantage of the shield bearer, not so good for the person who has embedded his blade in a shield like that and effectively disarmed himself. So as you can see, I'm in the process of adding the edge strip, and this is what the parchment, the strips look like now. they're a bit damp, so it feels like, it really does feel like leather, like greasy leather or something like this. But they're not really wet anymore, but you can see I can still fold them easily. So that's a great consistency to clamp them around the edge. As you know, when you fold them, there will be wrinkles. This is always the greatest challenge when you add a rawhide edge, to make sure that the wrinkles and the folds do not show up too drastically. So I'm getting step by step. So first I loosely clamped it with like 4 clamps or so, and now I'm going from one side to the other, adding glue as I proceed towards the edge, toward the final edge. And the cool thing about hide glue is, even though it doesn't have a long open time, so you can't really work it for a very long time, but because it sticks to itself, as you add glue onto a surface where there already has been some glue before, the glue will reopen again and stick to itself, and this is really cool. That's a really cool feature about hide glue. You don't have this with most modern glues. And as you can see, this produces some wrinkles now. Keep in mind that the parchment has absorbed some water, so it has expanded a bit. So as it dries, it will also shrink, and hopefully most of the wrinkles will then become invisible. So you can feel how, even though it's damp and hide glue is sensitive to moisture, because it's hide, it sticks to the parchment, to the wet parchment instantly. So I'm now going to put a piece of wood here, clamp it. I'm going to turn the board around. And glue the opposing side. So here we are. The shield edging is nicely in place. I have removed all the clamps and pieces of wood that were keeping it in place. I guess I could have done this after about an hour's time or so. There's still minor wrinkles here, and I'm now going to use my ironing method to flatten it out and to make it even more smooth, to have a really nice surface on my edge strip before I will attach the next part. So before I attach glue, I make sure that I keep the grain side facing outwards and put the glue onto the flesh side. So all the clamps are neatly in place, fixing the glued edge strip to the board. And while it is drying and setting, I'm going to work on my handle. So this is the handle that I carved, and handles were usually made of ash. Ash is the preferred wood for any kind of poles, like staffs for spears or any kind of pole weapon. You use ash, and even today you still use ash for, say, sledgehammers or axes, whatever tools still come with a wooden haft. Now, this here is beech. It was a piece that I had still lying around, so I'm going to give beech a try. And the handle is really important to, the handle stick, the handle bar is really important to give structural strength to the shield, because it connects, or later on it will connect all the boards, and thus also straighten out any potential warping that might have occurred during putting on your facing. Now, like anything that a shield consists of, these things were not particularly big or huge and substantial, so this one is has a rather slim terminal. There are some pieces which have like a kind of a fan shape at the very end that is flattened out, and the handle, the actual handle here, is modeled on what was found with the Trelleborg shields in Denmark in 2010, I think. So it basically has a D shape. So it's this will be the outside. This will be the side that is going to be fixed to the board. So here is a curve. So there's a distinct bend, and on the inside it's flat. As you can see, I started to carve an ornament on the shield handle. This one is based again on the shield that was found in Trelleborg. And the Trelleborg shield was not a finished one, it's not completed. Here you can see images of the original handle that was decorated with some light carving, intricate design. This is a photo montage of the complete handle rolled up into one single image. The undecorated parts, that's the inner side that will facing towards the boss, to the inside of the shield, and then what is decorated is the side that is will be visible later on. This shield from Trelleborg was not completed, and here's a photo of a nice replica of this ornament made by Mikkel Mønsted, and as you can see, it does not cover the complete handle. This may be intentional, but I decided to go for a variation, making this center strip here the center of my handle, and then I'm going to attach. I'm going to add the ornament here and here. And this is what I'm going to do next. So, as you can see, I have been working on my handlebar for this shield. I have carved the grip, the actual handle. Right now I'm in the process of attaching 2 rings so that I can later on fix a strap that would go around the shoulder when I transport the shield. So I used a piece of copper wire that I had lying around in my workshop. I hammered it flat on the anvil so that it doesn't have a round cross section but more of a rectangular cross section. And I used this brass ring or bronze ring, and I created this clamp that holds the ring. And these ends, the flattened ends of the wire, I pushed through a hole which I drilled into the handlebar. So this is where I push it through. Then on the opposing side, I have cut a cavity into the wood, because that's the side that will be glued to the shield board. So I don't want anything to protrude from here, because I need this smooth and even surface. So when the ends of when these ends come through, as they do now, they're going to be folded open so that it spreads. And I've already done this on this end, and then I bend the terminals and clip them to little pointy ends, which will now be hammered into the little holes that I drilled into the wood already. So I first need to split this. And bend each ending down. So I've pressed this down using a pair of pliers, just pressing it into the groove that I have cut into the wood, and now I'm going to hammer it flat so that the pointy ends go into the wood. So as you can see, all nice and flat, and here's my little ring that I can attach suspension belts to. All right.